Greetings, parents and friends, anyone listening to this video. This will be the third outreach video. And again, these are aimed mostly at parents, but students are welcome to watch, or anyone really that's interested in what's going on at 7th grade English here at LCMS in Mr. Harper's classroom. Last week, we wrapped up with our brown bag biographies. And we finished a thought experiment exercise on Friday. I do want to remind anyone who's interested that you can go onto the Google Classroom and see whatever was going on a particular day. You know, these videos are kind of designed to gloss over things quickly, but if you want more detail, you could just click and you should be able to get anything you need. Or you can always just call me or email me and I'm happy to clarify anything that's not spelled out. On Friday, I do enjoy doing some fun warm-ups. I try to give students a chance to get a little bit of a break from the warm-ups on Friday. And we did an exercise called a what if. And these are thought experiments. So it's an outrageous, sort of outlandish experiment that could never happen in real life, but we want to use our writing and our thinking skills to come up with a theory about what might happen if a bird tried to deliver a 20-inch pizza to an airliner. And these are just some examples that students did. You can either draw an image with some captions, or you're allowed to write out what your theory is. And these are actually based on a actual website. And student, I guess anybody can write in a question, a science-based what-if question, and then scientist Randall Munroe, the way I present it to students is he does the math and tries to figure out what might actually happen in these scenarios. And like I was saying, this is a fun activity. You know, students come up with their crazy theory and then they present it to the class and usually get some laughs and whatnot. But there is also, I hope, a little bit of academic value to it. Once we go and we review the website, students are asked to then summarize some of the new information they have and apply it to their theory. And they can either change their theory or they can keep it the same, depending on how they, if they felt like the information caused them to rethink, or maybe they felt like it just confirmed what they had thought all along. So this is the wrap up of that. This week, there are some pretty important things coming up. We are beginning our analysis of short stories. We're looking at our literary tools, and we're starting that process by talking about the plot arc. No doubt this will be familiar from back in the day. And these are the different terms we have discussed. Now, one of the things as an educator I want to really try and focus on. Most kids know these terms and the definitions. They've learned how to say the exposition, the initiating event, the rising. They kind of know that stuff, but what does it really mean? Okay, what's the real value of this as a reader and a consumer of whatever media? How can you use this as an analysis tool? So we try to break things down and bring it into the real world, so to speak. And the way we did that with these plot notes, where we discussed the old 60s and 70s run of Scooby-Doo. And students are always familiar with this, most students. And, they kind of know how it goes. And the great thing about these old episodes is that they all fit this plot arc perfectly, to the point where, they even literally say the same lines in different sections. So, Velma always says Jinkies during the rising action, and the bad guy always says, you meddling kids, during the falling action. And they have flashbacks where kind of Velma describes what had happened, what the crime was. So it's a really good sort of real world, quote unquote, model for this plot arc that students are familiar with. But our real goal is to apply it to our short story for this week, which is going to be All Summer in a Day. This is a old short story by Ray Bradbury, and it has a couple of themes that we're going to try to bring out. I mean, again, we're focusing on the plot arc for this, but I do want for students to think a little bit about bullying and ostracization. That's something that happens in this story. And it's also an example of the sci-fi genre and how science fiction can take something real and present it in a symbolic, sort of thematic kind of way. But again, the main focus for this is the plot arc, and students will be taking a reading quiz to go along with it. And whenever we do a short story, I like to try and model or a novel, a short story or a novel or whatever. I like to try and model sort of the reading process for students. So today, they were asked to go through and make some guesses and some deductions about this story before we ever read it. And the way I kind of sell this to them is I say, this is just like if you're in the library. What do? You look at the title of a story. You might read a couple of lines that are, open to the first or second page or whatever. Okay. Flip to the back of the book and find out some details about where the story happens and what kind of genre it is. And then make a prediction. Decide whether you're going to like it or not. So we're kind of modeling that process. So they do this first and they kind of discuss it and we bring it out in the classroom and we do a group thing with it. And while they read, they complete this reading quiz. Once they're done, they go back into, and this will be Friday at best, they go back into their groups and they discuss and they try to, the idea is that hopefully now that we've done the quiz and we've talked a little bit about our preliminary thoughts, we're ready for some more in-depth thought about these types of things. So this is a 3-level guide that kind of goes through and asks them to make some deductions about this. One thing I really try to emphasize for kids, very little that we do here in class is a right or wrong scenario. I need effort. That's what I want to see. I want to see a kid that tries to read and tries to make a good deduction. I'm not really, the quiz is a little different, but I'm not so worried about getting something right or getting it wrong as I am getting something on the page. Our other big event this week, of course, is going to be your map testing. Map testing will happen for English tomorrow. I do encourage students to get a good night's rest tonight and to please leave all the drama at home for tomorrow and, just come ready to read. I tell my groups, the one thing about English that's pretty positive is that all the answers are on the test. Okay, you're not going to find many subjects that have that advantage. All the answers are on the test. You just have to find them. And then we're going to wrap up the week by thinking a little bit about the educational process. Last year, Mr. Connolly, our assistant principal, turned me on to this idea of growth mindset. And I'll be very honest, I'm usually not a huge fan of, education reform types of things. But in this case, I really think he was on to something. And the basic summary of growth mindset, if you're interested, you can find out about it at, I'll post a video about it on the classroom that kind of goes through and explains what it is. But this lesson is adapted from what he was telling us about, and it asks students to think a little bit about how they approach education and what kind of attitudes will be successful in an educational venue and what types of attitudes might not be as successful. And, it's like a little game. They go through and they select the numbers and they have to add and subtract. I mean, all that's really kind of meaningless. It's just to generate some interest. The main point is I just want them to think a little bit about how they're approaching education. A big thing in 7th grade, as you all know. Next week, we will be going to the library on Tuesday. So try to encourage students to finish or at least read from their self-selected library novels. And we will be reading a short story called The Boy Who Drew Cats. It's by Lafcadio Hearn, or Lafcadio. I've actually never heard anybody say it, Hearn. And it's about a young man who has a really unique talent, but he just can't quite find how to apply it in the world. And we're going to use that to think a little bit about theme and author's message. So I hope you've enjoyed listening, and please contact me if anything's not clear or you need some further clarification. Thank you.